Well, it is 9:32. So we are recording this. And so I know more folks will be joining us shortly, but we're keep on schedule. We're going to get started. So welcome everybody. I'm Suzanne Young, the CEO for the Honolulu Board of Realtors. And today we have with us our partners from Aloha United Way. They are one of the partner agencies assisting with rental assistance for renters out there. So hopefully we have our property managers joining us, as well as possibly some landlords. So I am going to introduce Lisa Kimura and Ann Takenaka with Aloha United Way, and let you know that we have been talking with them for the past month now about their 211 line. We've been hosting on our website.com the resources on our website and getting quite a number of hits from the public to go there. And I know you realtors are really doing an excellent job directing folks to those resources. So at this time, what we want to do is give you an opportunity to hear directly from Aloha United Way on the rental assistance that they're providing, the requirements, the qualifications, the process, and how you as realtors can help to facilitate that process, maybe speed it along, and help folks get their rent checks quicker. And that means your landlord's being paid quicker. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I'm going to go ahead and share screen so that I can show you our presentation here. It always makes me very nervous to share screen. But thank you so much for having us today. And I want to, first of all, thank the entire Board of Realtors for your support in our campaign and historically in our fundraising efforts. This is just one of the many, many assistance programs that Aloha United Way offers via our 300 partner agencies. And as you all know, right now with the times that we are in, people are really struggling. And your organization, your realtors, your property managers are the ones who see it first, and you know who is struggling. You know it very well. Just like us with our 211 phone line, which some of you are familiar with. It's a phone line that we have these days, actually. It's every single day of the week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we have had a 600% increase in calls. About 30 to 40% of those people looking for rent and shelter assistance, because as you know, our unemployment rate is incredibly high these days and not changing anytime soon. So AUW started out back in March, realizing that we needed to respond and we needed to respond quickly. So we first launched a very early rent and utility assistance program. And since then, via CARES Act funds that have come through the state, the city and county has awarded a total of $25 million that will be distributed to help assist with rent, mortgage, and some utilities. The goals, of course, are to keep people housed. We all know, I think, that once someone loses their shelter, it is far more expensive, far more complex to provide them with the services that they need to get rehoused. And so our goal is just to really avoid that and help make sure that our system of care and our safety net is in place for people. So as a quick little overview, like I mentioned, the $25 million in this case for the HHRF program, which stands for Household Hardship Relief Fund, has been distributed between two intermediaries. One is Aloha United Way, and the other is the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. Via AUW, we've got some other partner agencies that are on the ground, so to speak, that are actually in local areas, one being Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center, so folks that are out on the west side that may not have access to internet services to complete the application online can resource there, as well as Kalihi Palama Health Center, who have several locations to assist people who, once again, may not have the access to do it themselves. The city has also set up a contract with Helping Hands Hawaii to provide language translation services. So individuals that are non-English speaking as a first language can still get assistance. There is absolutely no requirement for citizenship. It is open to everybody. And as a quick overview, and our team is going to dive much more into depth on this, but it is an assistance program that is putting money in the hands of landlords and vendors that are servicing people who have experienced some type of economic hardship due to COVID. This fund will cover up to $2,000 a month for rent, for mortgage and associated HOA fees, for utilities, which include electric and gas, as well as licensed elder care and licensed child care that's licensed by the Department of Human Services. This is afforded to infants and toddlers. Unfortunately, school-age children are excluded from this fund, though. And as a quick overview, and of course, again, our team's going to go into much greater depth on this, but so that you know, and you kind of know at a glance what this looks like, the major requirement is that the applicant has experienced a COVID-related financial hardship. For this particular program, they are required to be a resident of Oahu. They must be an adult, 18 years or older. They need to have up to or less than $15,000 in liquid assets. So that means the basic liquidity, cash, checking, savings, or other investments that they can access quickly. It does not include real estate. It does not include retirement accounts. And as well, they need to be at or below the 100% of the area median income, or AMI, and we'll show you that in a minute, but that's a formula based on household size and income. Their income must currently be less than what they were earning pre-COVID, meaning if they are now receiving unemployment benefits or other benefits that have increased their income, it's not necessarily considered a financial hardship. So it's those that are currently earning less. They can currently, as of July 1, request up to $2,000 a month for assistance. And so on the slide prior right here, any combination of these adding up to $2,000 plus an additional $500 a month for licensed childcare. So technically you could get up to $2,500 if you had a full expense equating to $2,000 plus another $500 for childcare. You may not apply for the same amount in the same month. So if you came to AUW and then you also went to the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement and applied for both, you would be found out and you would not be processed. But that's something to note too for you folks in helping to process clients' applications. You can very much let them know that only one per month can be processed. They must provide the information for their landlord. And in this case, working with the property managers with the Board of Realtors, wonderful, because sometimes we have applicants that, because everything is self-reported, sometimes information gets input incorrectly. In those cases, it just holds things up while we have to re-verify. So the accuracy of that vendor contact info for the landlord or for the utility company, et cetera, is extremely important. And also extremely important to know that all adults in the household must contribute their information to this application form. We do that to make sure that the household really truly has suffered some type of financial hardship. And these requirements are not necessarily at all set forth by Aloha United Way, but they are requirements from the city and county. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Hikari, who is on our team, to start to go through some of the more in-depth information here. And let's see. Suzanne, if perhaps we can turn it over to Hikari, that would be terrific.
Hi, sorry, little technical glitch. So I'm gonna go ahead and present the slideshow from where Lisa sent off. It'd be easier if I control it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so reflecting Lisa, thanks very much for being here. And I'll take over at this point. In addition to the prior eligibility that Lisa has explained, one of the main things that the applicant must be is that they must be below 100% of the area median income. Now, essentially what this means is you take the size of the household And then based on the size, the household as a whole cannot be making a certain income. So if the family size is 2, for example, you'll see that they cannot be making an annual income of over $96,000, and so on and so forth. As the household size increase, the limit increases as well. So this will be a component of the application as well, that the client will self-certify that they are not over the Aryan median income. And we tend to find that most people who apply, this is not a barrier for them. Okay, now one of the major things that can be difficult for clients is we have to confirm that whatever they're making currently as an income cannot be greater than their pre-COVID income. Now, pre-COVID income is being defined here as prior to March 4th. That's a specific date determined by the emergency declaration. So essentially, their current income is their current income plus expected income for the remainder of the year. So this is where things can get a little tricky, right? Because for some individuals, and sorry, let me back up a little bit. We're calculating two things, essentially. You're calculating their current income, which is basically what they're making now, and then you have to project that out for the rest of the year. And then the other thing you have to calculate is the income before their hardship. So, you know, if they have their tax document, that's easy, right? That just shows their entire income before. Or, you know, you can take whatever they were making before and then calculate that out. So let me give you an example. Their prior income, they just said, okay, I was making $20 an hour. So that's $45K a year, easy, right? And then their current income, they tell you, okay, well, I'm making $600 a week because of unemployment currently. So then to calculate that, you know, typically you might say something like, okay, let's calculate out the unemployment for the rest of the unemployment period. So maybe that's the next 3 months. But actually, we're not able to do that. We're supposed to treat their current income as it's projected for the rest of the year. So as an annual income. So you would take that 600 a week amount and actually times it by 52, because 52 weeks in the year. And so this is a tricky thing, because for some people, even though they're in a financially difficult situation, what they're making right now might actually be more than what they were making prior to COVID. So it's a tough situation, but we just ask your diligence in this manner is you have to calculate for projecting for the entire year. Okay, so just some eligibility definitions to make sure that we don't duplicate efforts in other matters. Each approved household, they can apply for a maximum of 6 months. And I'll show you folks all what that'll look like, how they can select which months to apply for. For each application months, the household must demonstrate economic hardship. So each time they submit an application through AUW, they need to demonstrate that they continue to have the hardship. Back payments are eligible. So this is where things can get a little interesting. So April, May, and June 2020, they can apply for up to $1,000 of assistance. And July and months onward, they can apply for $2,000 per month. So this is where you know, your relationship with the client is incredibly valuable to us, and you know, we're so thankful to have you folks on board. Is you folks know the need of your clients the best. So for some clients, because the thing is, right, that they can only apply for 6 months. For some clients, they might come to you right now and they say, you know, it's urgent. So I'm going to apply for April, May, June, July, and August, right? April, May, June, $1,000 each, so that's $3,000. July, August, that's $2,000 each, so that's $4,000. Combined, $7,000. But that means they can only apply for 1 more month after, because they're applying for 5. But some clients, they based on the situation and the rent situation, they may actually, it may be more advantageous for them to apply. You know, they say, okay, I'm not too behind and I do want more money moving forward. So I'll apply for June, July, August, and then I plan to apply for September, October, December. Knowing that for future months, you can get up to $2,000 instead of $1,000. So that's kind of the status of, you know, how much money you can apply for each month. And just remember, they can only apply for a maximum of 6. Okay, to prove eligibility of financial hardship, this is probably the most difficult of the documents, just because there's a variety of different ways that people can prove that there's some kind of hardship. So of course, the easiest thing is if the employer gave a layoff or furlough letter, they can simply present that. They can also present income documents. So any pay stubs that is showing a reduced or lost income comparatively to their pre-COVID income. If they have even just their work schedules that is showing a reduction in hours compared to what they usually would work, please submit a schedule for each month that they're requiring assistance for in that case. Bank statements showing proof of lost income. So if they're able to show bank statements that show direct deposits from their employer that is less than what is before, excuse me, that is also acceptable. Proof of unemployment insurance filing if they have filed for unemployment. If they're getting uninsurance right now, the certification or verification letter, of course, would work. W-9s that show loss of income, also acceptable. Increase in expenses directly related to COVID, so bills are also submittable. And then a doctor's note would work if the doctor's note proved that COVID-19 affected income. So that would also work. So a lot of different scenarios. For business owners, you know, because they wouldn't have a pay stub necessarily, more of a ledger of profit and loss after March 4th would work. Report of monthly income statements showing a less income since March. Or also, you know, we understand, of course, that a lot of businesses are have been affected by COVID, but are deemed non-essential. So proof of that. And then for gig economy workers, a copy of last year's federal tax return or W-2. And we certainly understand in a lot of scenarios too, we have people working for, you know, that kind of gig, right? Where maybe they work in music or DJ or Uber. So a copy of last year's federal tax return, that will show us how much they made last year compared to how much they're making now. Yeah. So this is the difficult part, is we have a few common situations. And let me go through them. Unfortunately, these people do not meet hardship criteria. If they were terminated for job performance or behavior, so this can get kind of tricky sometimes because you might get a layoff letter and then there's some interpretation work. We've had several letters that stated that the employee was terminated due to attendance, and then the employee, when they called us, they attempted to argue that it was, they laid it off because of COVID, but they tried to kind of mask it on an attendance thing. But what it comes down to, you know, is if the proof of the hardship says, you know, it was not COVID related, we're unable to provide assistance. If people were terminated prior to March, and if you look at the last bullet point, they're unable to find unemployment. So these are kind of related points, because a person might have been terminated prior to March, but we're not considering that COVID. And then a lot of them, they will claim that their hardship is because they can't find employment during this difficult time. And, you know, it's a difficult situation, and we're completely sympathetic to that, because we do understand that is a reality of the job market at this time. However, just due to the parameters of the program defined by the city and county, unfortunately, that wouldn't be defined as hardship under this program. So they would need to prove that the termination is March 4th or later. And then, yep, terminated for reasons unrelated to COVID, pretty much related to the first bullet point as well. Okay, so at this point, what I will go ahead and do is show you a couple of applications that we have. The main thing to remember at this point is that the pre-qualification application is a shorter version of the application you can give to the client if you're not sure that they are eligible for this program based on the qualifications we have described earlier. So, you know, this would be the first step. And if you're not sure, never hurts to go ahead and give them this application. The pre-qualification will just lead the client through several questions and let them know if they are eligible or not. And then if they're eligible, what you would actually fill out is the actual HHRF application, this second link here. So just as a reminder then, that if they do the pre-qualification, but they don't do the actual application, their application won't go through. So at the end of the day, if they are qualified, please make sure they do the HHRF application. I'll go ahead and show you the pre-qualification first. And what I'm guessing Zoom is doing is still showing the PowerPoint. Let me change the share screen. Okay, so this is the pre-qualification application. And just as a side note here is these applications, because we're migrating actually from a new system, these current applications are still under development. So you might notice some little glitches or typos, but it's functional at the current stage. So we appreciate your patience on that matter. And we are hopeful that these little typos won't appear when you folks get your hands on it. Okay, so the pre-qualification, basically just explaining, you know, what the program is. The first thing is we're just going to enter in basic information, so name, suffix if available, and phone number. And then we do ask at this point, what kind of services do you want? So let's do rent, mortgage, and utility. Okay, is your primary residence the city and county of Honolulu? Has to be yes. If they enter no, they are not qualified. Age, checking if they're over 18. And then self-certifying if they've experienced loss of income or increased financial need due to COVID. Checking the household liquid assets. The liquid asset limit currently is $15,000. So they should select that. And then they have to evaluate using the AMI chart, their income versus their household size, and just make sure they're under it. Okay, if they're under it, if they have any comments, otherwise we'll go ahead and submit. And then we have determined that you are pre-qualified for assistance. If they're not, it would say you are not, unfortunately, and then it will route them back to AUW 201 for them to try and find another rent utility assistance. What is really important at this time too is that it will present them with a list of documents that they will be needing in order to fill out the real HHRF form. So they should take note of this, get this ready, and when they're ready to fill out the application, they can reach out to you folks so you folks can go through the application together. So this is basically all the documents that we went through. Okay, so that's a pre-qualification. As you can see, very quick, very easy, no problem for you folks at all to either bulk send it out or just give it to people on a case-by-case basis and just let them know. It's a quick way to see if you're eligible for this program. So that's that is a pre-qualification, but the actual application, now that's a different application altogether. Okay, so this application, the main things to remember going into it is to just have the documents ready to go, because it's not, you know, a sort of a traditional online application where you can save it and come back to it later. You'll have to stay on this tab to make sure it all goes through. So just make sure that you have all the documents that are listed as required. We also have a document list of the documents required that can be sent to you folks if we haven't already. I think Eden can send that over. Okay, so make sure you have the documents ready. This is just explaining the program and just reminding you of the parameters that we're able to provide assistance for. And we'll get started with filling out the application. Now, first thing is the client's email address. So maybe this is Tom. Well, I'll just make it easy. AUW.org. And then at this point, it asks you, are you the client applicant who is actually filling out the application? Because some clients are just filling it out by themselves. But for all of you, you would be filling out, I'm assisting them with their application. First thing you have to do is select the agency you're with. These are all the partner agencies that AUW is partnering with. What you will see when you folks get your hands on this is an option to select the Board of Realtors. So you'll all be selecting that. And that will just tell us when the application comes through on our end that it's been filled out by one of you folks. Now you're gonna fill out your name. So let's just say the Board of Realtors has a person named John Smith, and then just fill out your phone number in case we have any questions about your client. And then you want to fill out your email address. Okay, so now we're switching to information of the applicant. So here's where you'll be asking your client questions. Now, the first thing you'll be doing is determining what months you're applying for assistance. This is really important. So we need to determine upfront, okay, you know, Hikari, do you want monies from April, May, June, July, August, because you're behind on rent for all of these? Or, you know, did you already pay April, May, and you'd rather get assistance moving forward? You know, this is where you'll have to talk with your client and make sure you select the correct months of assistance. And just remember, for every month that you select, they also need to have the outstanding invoices. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so we'll select June, July, and August. Actually, you know what? Let's just select June and July to make things more simple. This is a glitch. It just asks you to select the months again, but it's the same question as above. It's required, so I'll just select the same one. But this won't be on the final version, certainly. Okay, have you applied to the Household Hardship Relief Fund? At this point, what you would select is based on whether you submitted an application before. I'm just gonna select no. If you select yes, you just have to put in the date that you submitted your application. And that just helps us find your previous application. Make sure that you're not duplicating your months. Okay, have you submitted an application with the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement or Helping Hands Hawaii? These are two other nonprofits that are also doing the HHRF program. So if they have already applied with one of these programs, you as a realtor will have to direct them to reapply for more months with the other organization, because we want to be consistent. The city and county is requiring that the applicants stay with their initial agency. So we'll say no for now. Just assume they've been with AUW. And then this is a self-certification, just asking them if any other of their household members have already applied to this program. So we cannot have, you know, Hikari Omuro, maybe Azuki Omuro, Hikari's brother who lives with him, has already applied for HHRF. Unfortunately, we would not be able to, Hikari would not be able to submit an application because his household has already had somebody apply and receive assistance. So we'll select no in most cases. And then the HHRF assistance amounts are per household. Yeah, so that's just a reminder that the amount that you get is per that household. Okay, now we're just filling in basic information. More basic information, I believe. Yeah. Okay. And then let's do phone number, address, date of birth, and social security number. Just please make sure this is correct because this is one of the things we use to catch duplicates. Gender, ethnicity, select all that apply. Select multiple. Marital status, number of dependents in the household. It's important to note the number of dependents in the household to understand the overall household size, but you will the client will not need to enter in personal information for each child. Employment status, verified reason of need. There might be multiple needs. Maybe it's a reduction and they got laid off at a certain point. And then the last thing is just a verification, just reminding the client and the partner that submitting this form, it needs to be true and accurate as these are federal monies. Okay, so we'll move on. Okay, so we're gonna fill out some household information next. This is just reminding us of eligibility requirements, but I'll walk us through it. As a reminder, applicants may only receive funds if they can demonstrate financial hardship. And we just kind of have a big blast reminder here because one of the major things that we have to deny people for, unfortunately, is that what they're making now actually exceeds their pre-COVID income. And a lot of that situation is actually due to unemployment. Quite a few people are making more, technically they're making more now than they were pre-COVID. And the truth of the matter too is, should you have a client that is getting, income now that exceeds their pre-COVID, and they tell you this, of course they wouldn't be eligible to apply now, but certainly if they hit a situation, where their unemployment stops coming, at that point, certainly they would be applicable. So you could let them know to check back with you at that time to resubmit. Okay, so this is the annual income at time of application. So you would calculate this based on the income document that you receive from the client. So unemployment, it's weekly, times it by 52. Pay stubs, calculate the monthly, and then times it by 12. So whatever methods you would use to calculate the annual income projected. So let's just say $10,000. Just fill out the sources of income. So maybe that's work, maybe that's unemployment, etc. Select the interval of pay. And then you would calculate out the current annual income as of today. So this is the key question, right? So I would go ahead and just enter in $10,000 for this person again. Just a reminder here, this is a combined annual income of every household member. Oh, excuse me, sorry, that's the difference. So this is, up here is the annual income for the individual. And we collect that in addition to the household. So maybe my brother makes 5,000. So the total household income is 15,000. And then prior to March 4th, the entire household income, including me and my brother, was 20,000. So there is a decrease. Okay, so household size, let's just say 2. So 2 adults and 0 minors. And then, if applicable, you can enter in if there's any other adults and children living in the home, but there are different separate economic situations. So maybe they live under the same roof, but you don't file taxes together. But you know, this won't affect anything. It's just for our information. Again, just checking the AMI chart. We have 96,000, so and 15, I think 15,000, right? Yeah, 15,000 as the income. So definitely we are below. Now we have address information. Address, city, state, and zip code. Okay, county, they have to select city and county of Honolulu. And a mailing address if they have one that's different from their physical address. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, this is the point where we're going to upload our documents. So this is a critical component. Let us go over each of these. First one is easy, just identity. So government ID with a photo. I'll upload a dummy file just to make things easy. Proof of residency. Any one of these documents that is proving that they are residing within the city and county of Honolulu. So that includes ID, official documents, bills, bank medical statements would all be acceptable here. Okay, income verification. So we have several options here. Pay stubs, or unemployment certification with weekly benefit amount, or other acceptable method. And the other acceptable documents include all of these. And you know, most easy way is the pay stub or the unemployment, but these would be the other options, including tax return, SSI, etc. And upload that. Oh, by the way, I should point out to you at this point that you are able to upload multiple documents for the same question. So of course, like if it's 2 pay stubs, you know, you would upload 2 files here. That's completely acceptable. Yep, so just make sure they're all uploaded. Okay, if they have any public benefit statements or pension retire benefits, you would upload it here. I'll just leave that blank, it's optional. They do have to submit 2 months of the most recent bank statements. They do need to be the most recent bank statements, and it cannot just be a screenshot of, you know, the amount in their account. It needs to be the statements themselves. So for me, I would probably submit like end of July and also first half of July as well, right? Okay, so that's liquid asset verification. Hardship verification, this is the tricky one. They can submit as many documents as needed, but they need to show the COVID-19 need. So unemployment, loss of hours, close of business, furlough, etc. So we just have all of the options written out here. I'll just go ahead, submit only just one file. Okay, and then here we're gonna submit all invoices and receipts for the assistance. Now the good news is that for the we try to make it as simple as possible. And for rent and mortgage, basically if we have a copy of the lease or the payment portal with the rent amount, one document that proves the rental amount is fine for all months of assistance. You know, we don't need proof that they still need to pay for every single month because that would get a little crazy. For mortgage, similarly, the most recent mortgage statement. And for the rest of the bills as well, a similar process where you would do the most recent, or as applicable, you can get the invoices for each of the months. That's also acceptable. So it's an interesting situation, right, for each client, because sometimes for electric, maybe they have their July one is just a bulk. You know, it's their overdue April, May, and June. So if they just show the July with the outstanding payment, and they just want to use July to pay for all of that, that's totally fine. but if they submit their application and they want April, May, and June, and they want to pay $50 electric in April for the April, $50 for May, $50 for June, then it would be better to have the individual invoices for each of those. So whatever is easiest for the client and is most beneficial, right? Given the bills, their economic situation, and also how much money they want per month. And again, to consider too, right, is that they have 6 months limit. So if they use up, you know, April, May, June, just know they only have 3 months remaining. So we're trying to make it simple, but also, you know, flexible as possible. But for rent and mortgage, it's really simple. Just one proof of the lease or the mortgage statement. Okay. Additional notes, if they have any concerns or special situations you want to explain, like for hardship or whatever it may be, this is really helpful. We do read these notes, so please do let us know. Okay. Looks like that went through. Perfect. At this point, what it just asks is, are there any other additional household members in the family? Because if there aren't, then we have to fill out some more information. So this would be my brother, right? So it's just basically the same information. And we just collect this because we want information of all adults in the household. So if they do have other people living in the household, please make sure they do fill this out. Okay, and then based on the response here, their employment status, you'll see that the form will change. So if they're employed, certain information. If they're unemployed or other, then there's some other questions. So let's just say they're self-employed, and then just ask them some basic information about their employment. Okay, ask them to upload the pay stub, so we use this to verify their income and make sure their total household income matches what is reported. And then at the end, it asks if there's any other adults. So if you select yes at this point, it will just, you'll loop back into this thing, because then maybe you'll fill out the mother information or whatever. We'll say no for now, so we can just move on for sake of time. Okay, now this is a critical point of the process. You have to select which categories of assistance you're requesting for. So maybe it's mortgage, electric, and let's do childcare, because that one's a little unique. Oh, excuse me. Dog is barking. Okay, so after you select the types of assistance that the client wants, then what we'll have to do is just do some self-certification for the rent. Because the rent is, there's quite a few different considerations for rent. The main thing is that we cannot pay out through this program any federally funded properties, because that would be like the city and county is paying themselves, and it's just something we cannot do. So, self-certification. Are you receiving rental assistance through the Section 8 voucher program? Are you participating in the Rent to Work program? Are you participating in the Housing First program? Do you live in a building owned or managed by the HPHA? So if the client is not sure whether their building is on this list, we do have a link here, and they can, control find their building name. And then if it's on here, sadly, they cannot receive assistance. Do you live in a building owned or managed by the City and County of Honolulu? So this is one we're actively working on right now for you folks, is we want a list kind of just like this, we are continuing to communicate with city and county to get this list. But for now, the question is kind of open. So, you know, in a lot of cases, I imagine it's a no, but we'll have a list here soon so that you folks can make sure. And then, are you renting your current residence from a family member? So this is the thing, is if they're requesting a rent assistance, the rent lease agreement cannot be with a family member. You know, it cannot be son renting from their uncle. If all of these are no, then we should be good to go. An important note here is if they do select yes for any one of these, the only thing they're not eligible for is rent. So they could still apply for electric assistance, for example. It let us through. So what we'll do here is enter in the landlord management company name. So, see, address and unit number. It just took our address information from before, so that's fine. Total monthly rent amount. Total amount requested for rent assistance for June back pay. Okay, so it asks what the rent is, and then what it's going to do now is ask how much they want for each month. So this was populated because I selected June and July. As a reminder, June and backwards is only $1,000, and July forwards is $2,000. So maybe for June, I want $1,000, and for July, well, it shouldn't be over $1,000 because your rent amount is $1,000. We'll do $1,000 here. But they can get more than $1,000 for July. So maybe what we'll do is for electric, we'll make that a June ask, right? So we can add that onto the June amount. Okay. So what's great here is at this point, you know, you would fill out the landlord email address. So this would be, I think, the John J. Smith person. And then the phone number. And this might be you folks, right? And then our plan and what this form will be doing is that when you enter this information, to your email address will be sent the vendor information form that just asks basic information that will allow us to make a check payable out to you folks. So just enter in your email here, and then you will get an email so that you can tell us how you want to be paid. But this is all the client has to do at this point. Okay, now because we selected electric, it's going to ask about our electric next. Pretty much most people would be under HECO. And for gas, they would be under Hawaii Gas. The client needs to offer up their account number because we use that to tie funds and tell HECO, okay, this amount of money is going to go to this account number. Again, total amount requested for June. Remember, we went 1,000. That's a max for June. So we got to do 0 here. But maybe for July, they have an outstanding balance of 500. So we'll use this here to apply. Okay, and the last one we selected is the child care. Now the child care, it's an additional $500 on top of everything else. So even if they hit their max for the months, you can still do 500 every month. They need to select their child care provider list from this list of DHS approved. So this is a list that the city and county has provided. Sadly, if their child care is not on this list, they're unable to ask for assistance here. And this is all not preschool and below age facilities. Sadly, we cannot do the school age child care. So that's the limitation on that. So let's say that maybe they're YWCA, and then this is a field that will be removed. So we can ignore that for now. It is required, so I'll just put something. So you'll just have this drop-down list, and then you'll enter in the name of the child. And we use that, that's necessary because we use that to tie the money to the specific child care account. EIN, you can always Google that if you're not sure. YWCA, Developmental Preschool, EIN number. The childcare provider, yep, is your childcare provider in this list? It should be, right, because we did the drop-down menu. Please provide invoice showing the full amount owed. So we do need the invoice here. And here's where we put in the amounts requested for each month. So we can do 500 for June, even though we hit $1,000 already. And then we'll do 500 for July. Okay, email address for the childcare provider. And then we'll move on here. Okay, at this point, we'll certify. We're basically done with the application. So we'll certify and then put in any comments as necessary. And then once you hit the submit button, you won't be able to alter any of the information other than by reaching out to AUW. So please make sure everything is correct. If you need to go back, you can always hit the back button. Otherwise, we'll submit and we're all clear. Okay, so this is just information. If you have any questions, please, we do ask because it's such a high volume. Only if the questions are urgent, please do email us. But the contact information is here. And certainly you or the client can reach out to us if you have questions. Okay. So that is the application and how to submit it. So I'll go back to sharing the PowerPoint screen now. Okay, so there's a couple of other details I think that we want to run through the presentation. Oh, and excuse me. Okay, so we wanted to run over the common hold reasons as well as the FAQs with Eden very quickly. The common hold reasons, I'm so sorry, please excuse me for 1 second.
While Hikari's on hold, we'll just go ahead and address this slide and then we'll move forward. But essentially what we want to make sure is that the information that we do receive is accurate, is able to be properly documented. And so in this case, if the information is not legible, as seen in this example here, that would obviously be an example of when we cannot process it. So it just needs to be able to be read and properly attested to. The other thing is with our liquid asset documentation, we want to make sure that we've got 2 months of recent consecutive bank statements. So they can't give us January, February. It needs to be the most recent. It needs to be the last 2 months. And that is to, again, be able to document the reduction in their financial, or document the financial hardship. And so it needs to be consecutive, it must be official, and again, it can't be from a past prior to the last 2 months. If they do not have a bank account at all, that is perfectly fine. They are not required to have one. We just need to have some type of documentation of their liquid assets. I'll turn it back over to Hikari.
Thanks, Lisa. Joys of working from home. Okay, so another common reason is that the payment information, what's brilliant is that for you folks, this will be a breeze because, for the rest of the clients, basically the landlord information in the past has been self-offered by the client, or if offered by the landlord or vendor, there was just some common or just some strange things about the information. So just confirming and making sure that payment information does indeed belong to the landlord, that the landlord's payment address If it is the same as the applicant, sometimes that is acceptable, but it will be something to comment on. So if the address is the same as the applicant, clients are required to put a comment just explaining the situation. In cases where landlord shares the same name as the applicant, that will flag us because it might be a family member, which is not allowable. So just another comment explaining that if that is the case. Payment address, just making sure that it matches the information on the lease. So making sure that your rent ask isn't greater than what's actually written on the lease. And then just checking that all other information is correct. But for you folks, because you will be working directly with the client and that, you'll be submitting the information yourselves in regards to the information of the property management, we feel confident that this will be more of an easy for you folks. The current income documentation and AMI verification. Okay, so the difficult thing is that, of course, the income needs to prove the hardship, right? So there needs to be a reduction between pre-March 4th and then current. Making sure that the income information, you provide 2 pay stubs, not just one, and then otherwise 2 in regards to if you're verifying the income in the other ways, just making sure those documents are in. So yeah, we do have quite a few situations where just 1 pay stub is provided. And then there's some cases too where they're above the 100% AMI. So just ensuring that that is calculated correctly. Okay. Another reason why the application might be held is sometimes the invoices that are submitted, they are just missing, or there's something a little funky with them. So we have to line it up, right? We have to make sure that the invoice is attached and that the amount that they're requesting isn't bigger than the amount on the invoice, because then we would be paying them more than what they owe, which would be problematic. And there should be a signature on the invoice as well. This is particularly related to the rent leases. There needs to be a signature on those specifically. In the case where, excuse me, there was a point I wanted to make about electricity, but it escaped me. So if it comes back, I'll come back to it. But otherwise, just making sure that the invoices line up. That's really critical. Otherwise, we cannot make a payment. Missing household information. So unfortunately, even though we understand that the client is applying, we do need information of all other adults in the household. That's really important for our data. So for example, you saw when we were filling out the application that it asks for the total household size. And then it also asks how much adults are in the household. Now, if the amount of adults in the household that they report doesn't match the amount of adults that you fill out the information for, if you remember, we selected, are there other adults living in the household? And when I said yes, it brought up like the profile, right, where I filled out my brother's information. So you got to make sure, they report the right number of adults, and for each adult, they fill out that little profile. So there should be 1 profile for each adult. And then just making sure too that the lease information, it matches the household member. So if the lease has somebody on it that's really different from the adults on the application, then we would not be able to use that as an invoice. Okay, so HHRF exclusions, as I explained previously, this is the self-certification part of the application. So just as a reminder that we cannot use the funds to pay for federally funded entities. So here's kind of just a reminder of that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about next steps after the applications are submitted. So after the application is submitted by you, AUW staff called a client liaison is going to review the application. So we do vet the applications even after you submit it. And then what we'll do is we'll reach out directly to your client if there are issues with the application. And actually, I think this would be the case if the client self-submits. With the Board of Realtors, it might be reaching out to you. We have to confirm that process, I think. Lisa will confirm. But in any case, the point is that we analyze the application. If there's an issue, it will be returned and be able to be fixed. That's the main thing. If it is be able to be fixed, then it will just appear on the next batch of approvals, which you'll see the next step is approvals are submitted to finance each Friday. And then finance's goal is to mail out those checks by the following Friday. We try our best to adhere to the schedule. They shouldn't be taken as hard deadlines, but I think so far we've done a pretty good job of staying consistent to this. But depending on staff health or other delay, you just never know, right? During these times what might happen. There just might be delays. So we ask for your continued patience. The last step is after the checks are mailed to the vendors themselves, we close the loop by having the application send out payout notifications to each vendor and client. And what these payout notifications will do is inform the client of how much money they are going to receive. And then the vendors are going to get a payout notification as well. It helps them break down the check because the checks, it's just a bulk check, right? For maybe they get a check and it's like $8,000 and it's for 5 applicants. Well, the payout notifications, as well as the check stub, by the way, but the payout notifications is going to tell them line by line, okay, $1,000 to Hikari Omuro, unit 202. So the payout notification includes information that allows vendors to associate payment amounts to the clients. For rent and mortgage, I believe for rent it's address, including unit number. Mortgage is account number. Utilities, electric, gas is account number. And then childcare and elder care is the name of the child or the elder receiving care. So that's the data points that we use to tell vendors, okay, here's the amount of money you got to give to this person, and here's the amount of money that you got to put into this person's account. We try to close a loop that way. Okay, and then I will turn it over now to our program coordinator, Eden, to go over some of the most frequent asked questions.
Thank you, Hikari, and good morning, everyone. So some of these we've kind of touched base on throughout the presentation, but they are questions that come up really frequently. So I'm just going to reiterate a little bit. So what counts as income? This does include not only employment, but also unemployment, alimony, Social Security income, and reoccurring gifts. So that's a question that we frequently get. And then what if the client's stated income seems strange? So for example, they tell you they don't have any income. They have a much larger income now than they did before. This will vary a little bit depending on your level of involvement in the application process. I saw a question in the chat earlier, and you are not liable for the information that the client attests to themselves. But if you notice something strange that may disqualify their application, it could be very worthwhile to look at their income documents again and see if you can verify their income that way. And again, it is acceptable to have no income, but there must be proof of COVID-19 need. So what if the client's liquid assets are under $15,000, but we notice large transactions on the account? This is a pretty common situation. And if you're comfortable, it's very helpful to ask the client about the large transactions because there are certain circumstances where it's acceptable. For example, if they had to make a down payment on a home or pay a large medical bill. But what we're really looking out for is that they didn't transfer money to another account to hide assets. So if you're not comfortable asking and providing that information, you can just advise the client that the Household Hardship Relief Fund cannot process applications showing large transactions if there's no acceptable justification. And then we also took a look at the household member information that you would submit on the application, or that the client would. We do require income documents for each adult household member. And this is something applicants often forget about or aren't prepared for, because we ask for these separately from the other document uploads. But unless they have zero income, we require income documents with just the same standards as the main applicant. So for example, if they're working, we would require 2 pay stubs, just as we would for the applicant. We also get asked frequently what the typical processing time is. An application with no errors will be processed in just under 2 weeks, following the process that Hikari outlined. Where it can get longer is if the application is on hold for some reason. That will really depend on the responsiveness of the applicant. So we will phone and email multiple times, but that really depends on the applicant. So we say that the processing time is 2 to 4 weeks to take into consideration resolving any possible holds. And then in terms of how you could help your client's application get processed as quickly as possible, a huge thing that we went over as well is ensuring that all documents are uploaded correctly. Another thing you can do is leave an application note if you know there's something unusual. So that would be in the notes and comment section. For example, if the client started working recently and has only 1 pay stub, or the client has no bank account, if you're able to notify us of that information, then we won't have to flag the application and attempt to resolve it with the applicant. And an additional thing is to notify us if you learn new information. So you would be surprised how often an applicant will submit a form and then realize that they've made a mistake in calculating their income, or made a mistake in terms of who they were supposed to send money to. And the faster you could let us know in a situation like that, the more quickly the application would get processed. So those are really our main frequently asked questions. And I think that now we can open it up to more questions as well.
And let me walk through some of the questions that we've gotten in the chat. So just in case you haven't had a chance to see the answers yet, we can answer it for you now. We know this is a lot of information, and Eden's information is right there on the screen now, and she can assist you directly as she coordinates all aspects of this program. So anything that you might need, go ahead and take down her information, and all this will be made available to you afterwards, along with lists of documents and requirements and all that, so that you can help your tenants to get their information. So some questions that came through about eligibility documents. Can tenants just submit one option and get approved? Yes, you don't have to submit all, as long as the documents prove who they are and that their situation is indeed a result of COVID and they have suffered some type of financial hardship. Those are the qualifications. If the documents are ambiguous in some way, or they're not sequential or things like that, yes, that might be a problem, but it's so long as they can get at least one of those options, yes, they can get approved. There was a question about working for a farmer at a farmer's market that was closed. It doesn't matter what type of business, small business, corporation, it doesn't matter. What we are looking for, or I should say what the city and county is looking for, is that they have experienced some type of financial hardship. That may mean they were laid off. It may mean they were furloughed. It may mean their hours were cut and they're not making as much as they were anymore. All of those are acceptable situations. They can document that. If they have applied for unemployment, they can document it through showing their work schedule. If they don't have as many hours scheduled, they can document it from a letter from the farmer's market owner or the business owner. They can also show a sequential reduction in their monthly balance, their liquid assets. And we have found that there are some business owners, or they may have cut their employees' hours, they have not laid them off. Some do not want to pay UI, and so they are not necessarily saying that their employees have been fired, but they have 0 hours on their schedule. Those are all acceptable alternatives. Again, it's just a matter of being able to prove that they have suffered some type of financial hardship, but there's no one and fast rule for what that might look like. There's a question about whether you as a property manager need to get involved in the application form, or can you simply advise them? You can advise them about the program. What will speed up the payment getting made to your landlords is the accuracy of the information. And like we showed on some of those common problems and common reasons why applications are put on hold, the best that we can do, or that you can do as property managers, to make sure that that information is correct and submitted timely, and that your payment information is included correctly, the faster that your landlords that you are that are your clients can get paid. So you do not have to help them, but again, Hikari showed on the application form where you can check that you are helping someone with their application. Their attestment is the fact that the information is factual. You are not responsible for that. If the tenant does not have access to a computer, is there a paper application? Yes. We know that some people have access issues, may not have internet, may not have a computer. First of all, best thing is to call 211, which is our phone line that is operated by Aloha United Way. That 211, the specialist will direct them. Either we can mail them a paper application, or they can go in person to a couple of our partner agencies. One is Kalihi Palama Health Center. The other is Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center. So we have locations island-wide. And if you're interested, we can also provide HBR and you folks with a paper application that you can have on hand that may help you just walk clients through the application. But yes, paper documentation is completely fine in absence of a computer or internet. Another question is, if the tenant requests the realtor to assist with the online application, is the realtor responsible for verifying the accuracy? No. We're just asking for your assistance to make sure that your payment information is accurate. We surprisingly have had tenants that have given us wrong information, wrong account information, wrong mailing address. Sometimes people don't realize, I think, but that just means that your payment does not get to you in a timely fashion. So the more accurate your payment information is, as well as making sure that they have uploaded everything, because we cannot process it if we do not have all of the eligibility proven. But you are not responsible for the validity outside of your payment information. Catholic Charities operates a rental assistance program. So the question was whether tenants can also apply to that. It is a different program. Catholic Charities has money that comes from a federal housing program. It is technically separate from this program. However, the difference is that this program applicants cannot apply for this program, as well as through the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. That is the same program that is being offered through the city and county. Also, this program pays for both mortgage and rent assistance and utility assistance, as well as pays for back rent. The program that is currently offered by Catholic Charities is a max of 1 month. For this program, you can get a maximum of 6 months combined. Question is if a homeowner can apply. Yes, this is open for homeowners for mortgage assistance and HOA assistance. It's also open for tenants and anyone needing utility assistance, childcare, or elder care. The difference is the program originally started for April, May, June, providing up to $1,000 a month of assistance. Starting July through the end of the year, it's up to $2,000. So best judgment made there on which months the homeowner or tenant should apply for. Question is, should furloughed employees select employed or not employed? If they are furloughed, they can select employed. if they have the assumption that they'll be going back to work, this program does not require you to be unemployed. It just requires some type of financial hardship. And again, that's documented through those methods I was just talking about. If you have specific questions about what would be acceptable after this, again, please feel free to contact Eden at the information on the screen. But the key here is to show the financial hardship. Again, it's not whether they're unemployed, it's not whether they've applied for unemployment assistance. Question, if the applicant was unemployed pre-COVID, but still can't find employment, would they be eligible? No. Unfortunately, and we all know how hard it is for people to find jobs right now, but no, this program, the nexus of need is COVID. And so in other words, COVID has caused them to lose their job, lose hours, lose their business, etc. But unfortunately, those who are already unemployed do not qualify under this program. Does the tenant have to be and show they are delinquent in order to receive assistance? No, they do not. And our hope is that people are not getting into that situation, but we know they are. But no, delinquency is not a requirement. And if an owner agrees to lower the rent to help the tenant, is that considered a delinquency? No, not at all. We appreciate those landlords who are helping their tenants during this time, and even the $2,000 that they can receive for this program sometimes isn't enough. And so we graciously appreciate the leniency that is given in lowering rent, but it is not a requirement, nor does it count as a delinquency. Question is, how do you handle electric or utilities paid to the landlord? Yeah, that would be as per the lease agreement. So if it specifies a set amount of utility cost per month in the lease, we go according to the lease as a legal document and pay it to the landlord as specified. There's a question about asking to see a sample email about what the property manager receives. Don't want to give information to scammers. Absolutely understand that. As Hikari mentioned at the beginning, the application form that we were walking you through is a brand new platform that we are in the midst of finalizing right now. We're migrating away from one platform to this one. So we have all that stuff that's just moments away from finalization, but we'll make sure to share that with you. A question about multifamily property that shares 1 meter. The property management bills the tenants based on the number of adults. How can they file for electric if this is the case? Once again, if the lease specifies how that electric usage is billed, as well as how and where the electric bill is sent for payment, just have that documented, and the payment will match the invoice that the tenant is given for their share of the bill. And yeah, once again, just following whatever the lease says. What is the monthly application deadline? And right now, applicants can apply for back rent all the way up to April, and the next month's application opens 1 week prior to the next month. So for currently right now, if you have clients, they would be eligible to apply all the way from April through August at this point. Question is, when does the program end? It ends at the end of the year. So December is the end of the program. And again, your clients or your tenants can apply for a maximum of 6 months. Also important to know, even for your landlords that are your clients, again, if they're the ones themselves experiencing need or hardship, absolutely, this is important for them to know about for themselves as well, but a maximum total of 6 months. We will share these slides, and we will make sure to share all documents. Question was how, if they do not have recent pay stubs, if they're no longer working, obviously they would not submit it. Again, it's not unemployment that's the nexus of need. It's the fact that they have been financially impacted by COVID. So if they are not working, instead they can show that they've applied for UI. They can show their schedule has cut their hours. They can show that their bank statements indicate a decline in balance, or they could get a letter from their employer stating any of those situations. Is there a maximum balance on the bank statements? Yes, our maximum liquid assets is up to $15,000. And again, that does not include IRAs, that does not include bonds or other assets that are not liquid and easily accessible. What happens if the person you work for is a small farmer? So again, any one of those notices indicating financial hardship, but the type of business does not exclude anybody. How do you prove unemployment? Once again, if they are unemployed and they have not yet got UI, we know that's a situation for many people. So again, one of those other alternative methods that was mentioned. What happens if they get the money and still don't pay? Important to note that all of these payments go directly to the landlord or property management company as specified in the lease. So it does not go to the hands of the applicant. But again, this is why it's extremely important that they get the information correct, because if we don't have your payment and your mailing address correct, we cannot get the money to you. Say if the requested assistance fund gets approved, will those approved assistance funds become debts to applicants in the future and must be paid off? No, this assistance fund is just that. It's assistance for those who need it. It's to help them get by. It's to help make sure that we keep people housed. It is not considered a debt, and it is not considered income to the applicant. However, your landlord will be provided a 1099 at the end of the year, so it will prove the landlord has received the income for their rental unit, but again, no debt to the applicant. So if the applicant has more than $15,000 in his or her bank account, would they not be qualified? Correct. It is a maximum of $15,000 in liquid assets. We know that's a hardship for some, but the prioritization was made to help those who are already with the least amount of assets available. Does the check for rent come directly to the property management company? Yes. And heard Hikari say the check would be a bulk check. Sometimes, yes, we will batch. If your property management company has 5 or 10 applicants that have applied for the month, we may batch those checks, but we do attach documentation showing who it's for, the amount, and then account number if applicable. How do you handle multiple tenants renting one house if they split $4,000 a month by 4 roommates? In this case, because it is a household hardship program, if one of those 4 roommates or several of those 4, if any of them have suffered a financial hardship which makes it difficult to pay the rent, then we would request, again, the same documentation. The household would need to fall under the AMI collectively, and all other documentation would be still true.
Lisa, one question
Yes.
about, the multiple people, and they're all responsible for the lease. Could the client also report themselves as a 1-person household that's responsible for 1/4 of the rent?
Knowing in this case that the lease is going to reflect a total of 4,000, that wouldn't be probably an option that the city would allow. This particular tenant may want to renegotiate with the property management company to split out perhaps part of their rent. But again, as the requirements would state, they would not apply. However, with that said, we always will take exceptional circumstances like this to the city and request for them to make exceptions. So by all means, we can assist before you go through the whole application process and make that ask.
Okay, perfect. I'll update my answer.
2 military roommates are paying rent. The other 2 are unemployed. Once again, documentation for the household as it pertains to the lease. Question about getting a copy of the slideshow? Absolutely. We'll make sure you get this after. Is HHRF monetary money subject to income tax? That is a good question. We do not issue a 1099 to the applicant. It is considered money that is given to the landlord, and so it actually does not count as income for the applicant, but it will count as rental income for the landlord. Is the money sent to the tenant or the landlord? Yes, the money is not sent to the tenant, it's sent to the landlord or property manager. Are you able to send the checks separated by the project and not bulked? Yes, absolutely. If you need it, make sure to put it in the comments on the application form, or you can always, again, reach out to Eden, whose information is on that screen, just so that we can communicate that to our finance department. What happens if the landlord needs assistance? This program is open to anyone, whether they are a renter or a homeowner, and same limits, same requirements. And if the landlord is experiencing financial hardship, they can apply for mortgage assistance. If the landlord gives the tenant a break in rent, can the landlord apply for the difference? No, but again, the landlord can apply for the for their mortgage to offer assistance to them. So it looks like we have some more open questions. If sent to the tenant directly, will the property manager be aware of it? Again, does not go to them directly. If a landlord not receiving rent due to a tenant not paying rent, due to COVID, considered as a COVID hardship for the landlord. No, again, if the tenant is not able to pay, the tenant is applying for assistance. But if the landlord has their own financial hardship to pay their own mortgage, absolutely, they can apply for themselves. So the landlord will get, oops, it's jumping around, $10.99 at the end of the year. I know someone that does not claim the rent. This landlord is 87. You know, that's definitely a situation to speak to with your landlord client. Obviously, you know, rental income should be reported on their taxes. And because this is government funds, they are particularly interested with obviously making sure that that everything is on the up and up. So unfortunately can't speak to that too much more, but those are the rules not set up by Aloha United Way, but again, it's CARES Act money from the federal government flowing through the city and county. We'd like to share this information now to tenants. When can you send presentation? Oh, we'd be happy to send it to you right away. Yep, we'll send it, make sure you've got it today. And then don't understand how landlord can apply for business help. So the landlord would be applying for mortgage assistance. If they're operating their rentals as a business, they themselves, basically the point of this program is to help people stay housed and to not lose their utilities. And that is the primary goal of this program. There are other pandemic business assistance programs. We know also that those are sometimes very difficult to access, but again, this program is designed to help people stay housed. So if the landlord has had some type of financial hardship, they are just as eligible as a tenant to apply. And again, going through the application form, they would just check that they need mortgage assistance and they would provide proof of their mortgage rather than a lease.
Lisa, I'm going to jump in. This is
Yes.
Susan. I see a lot of you asking about getting the copy of the presentation. So we are not going to ask AUW to send it individually to all of you. We are working in partnership with AUW. They are forwarding the presentation to us as well. We have recorded this session because we know the information is important and not everybody was able to perhaps make it. So we will be getting the recording processed. We'll be getting the information directly from AUW, and then we will be sending it out to all of our members. And for a landlord who does not have a mortgage, but the rental income is their business income, so they are a small business owner, they're an independent contractor. Yes, they're supposed to file that as income. There are tax requirements. Those would be programs that are the small business loan. HBR has all of that information, resources for homeowners, for small businesses. It's on highcentral.com on the main page or on members.highcentral.com. So all of that information is there. Lisa, I had a question, and maybe this is Hikari. Way in the beginning when you talked about calculating expected income going forward, someone who was currently receiving the additional $600 unemployment income, but that has now stopped. We have no idea what that information or amount will look like with Congress. Are they expected to count 600 assuming that, or do they say, I got 600 through July and now I'm only getting regular unemployment?
Exactly, the second scenario. So based on what it looks like today. So if today it has ended for them, then calculating that, yeah, based on the reality now.
Okay, and I have another question. So a lot of these programs through AUW, CNHA, Catholic Charities, and all of the government funded programs, those are great for people who have reduced income because of a COVID event, right? But as we saw some of the questions that we had, there are individuals who were between jobs, who for whatever reason had to quit, who are afraid or have health concerns and cannot go seek employment now. Does AUW or any agency that you know of have any access to rental assistance for renters who may be in that situation?
The best way to access that is by calling 211. We do have a variety of programs in our 211 database that will direct people to the appropriate program. If it's not this one, we do have others. And the state is about to implement another similar program, slightly different requirements. So TBD on what that will fully look like, because they're in the midst of kind of hashing out all those details right now. But yes, the best answer I can give is just to call 211 and find out what else is out there. The other benefit of calling 211 is, for example, for people that are really suffering right now, they can also get access to food assistance, to healthcare assistance, to any number of things.
Okay, excellent. And I do know, folks, you know, there's many different programs that are out there. Even if you have Native Hawaiian renters, if you have Native Hawaiians who are on the list for Hawaiian homelands, they have a separate program. So one of the reasons we're bringing you these sessions is because we want to make sure that you have as much information about all the various programs that are out there so you can ultimately help your landlord get their full rent paid. And by doing that, you're helping to continue to house the renters. So I don't see any other questions. Lisa, Eden, Hikari, and you guys have been phenomenal to work with.
Thank you, Suzanne. We really appreciate it. And, you know, it's our goal, obviously, just to help as many people as we can. So thank you all for inviting us to speak to you and for sharing this
taking
information.
your time to do this. And yeah, it's been excellent. Have a great day, everyone. We will be sending information to you later today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.